right, the divisional round of the NFL playoffs is upon us. You can make the case that this is the best football weekend in the NFL season just because of the pure talent of teams that we have playing. 4 from the NFC, 4 from the AFC, 4 separate games. The one seeds are involved. So in wildcard weekend, you don't see the Chiefs, you don't see the Lions, but you see teams that snuck in there, kind of like the Broncos and Steelers. It's not all high level, high quality football. If you made it to the divisional round of the NFL playoffs, though, you are an outstanding football team. Plain and simple. You are one of the 8 best teams in the sport if you made it this far. We have 4 very fun games. 3 of them, I think, are going to be uber competitive. And I don't want to say 3 of them I could see going either way, but 2 of them, for sure, I would not be shocked at the outcome. One of those may surprise you, but without any further delay, let's hop into these divisional predictions. All right, so the first game on the docket, of course, 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on a Saturday. Who else would play but the Houston Texans versus the Kansas City Chiefs? The Kansas City Chiefs are 8.5-point favorites in this game. They played in Week 16, and Kansas City won 27-19. Both teams were battling in this spot. Of course, this is the game in which Tank Dell suffered that catastrophic leg injury. The Chiefs were still vying to be the number 1 seed, so Mahomes was out there. We got a pretty decent look at these two teams versus each other. Some injuries on both sides. Pacheco was still coming back. Houston had some injuries on their defensive line. Al-Shaair was suspended, so it's not tick for tack the exact same game. But Week 16, it's close enough ago that there's some similarities. The one big talking point that I want to have for this is, because everybody's just sitting here, the Chiefs are going to win, the Chiefs are going to win, the Chiefs are going to win. We'll get to my prediction in a minute, but again, I think the Houston Texans are being a little overlooked and a little disrespected. And I did say this last week when they were playing the Chargers. Despite picking the Chargers to win, I said, listen, people are acting like Houston is a rollover team. Rex Ryan last week said that the Chargers had a bye week playing the Texans. The Texans' defense is better than Kansas City's. I mean, you don't believe me? Let's talk about some of the numbers. More sacks, more forced turnovers, less yards per game, lower passer rating, and they allow a lower completion percentage to opposing quarterbacks. The Texans actually allow the lowest completion percentage to opposing quarterbacks in the NFL. They're a coverage team, and they can get to your quarterback and will make you pay for mistakes. This defense is elite. This defense is a top 5 unit, and they have elite players at all levels. Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson Jr. statistically were the best edge rusher duo in football this year. They have 3 really solid linebackers in Christian Harris, Al-Shaair, and Oto'o. I probably said that wrong, but whatever. And Derek Stingley has a case to be the best corner in football. They have Kamari Lassiter on the other side. Caden Bullock's playing well. And this is a defense that's weakened without Jalen Petrie. I'm not saying that they're going to ultimately stop Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and this Chiefs offense. But I do think that we should set the correct expectation of this is a real tough defense to face, man. They gave Justin Herbert his worst game all season. They gave Josh Allen his worst game all season in the regular season. They're not just good against bad quarterbacks. They can give great quarterbacks their worst day of the NFL season. And the way that the playoffs work in the NFL is it's a 1-game sample. You lose this 1 game and it's over. And the Houston Texans defense has the ability to give Patrick Mahomes his worst day of the season and ultimately end Kansas City's run potentially. Kansas City's offense needs to be efficient. And all year they were slightly better than the Houston Texans on offense. Mahomes had 26 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, and a 93.5 passer rating. And the history of him is that he steps it up a level in the playoffs. He improves in the playoffs. And that is also the case with his head coach, Andy Reid. Andy Reid, coming off of a bye, is 22-4. The guy wins games post-bye. You give Andy Reid extra time to prepare, the guy will make you pay. You saw that this past week with Sean McVay. Sean McVay and the Rams took a bye in Week 18. Punted the game, said we're fine playing the Vikings. Could have been the 3 seed. Could have been playing Washington. They said, nah, we're fine with whatever the outcome is, Detroit or Vikings. We want to give McVay extra time to game plan and our guys a rest. Did just that, paid off tremendously. Same thing with Andy Reid, one of the best coaches in our sport, if not the best coach. Getting extra time to prepare is certainly an advantage for the Chiefs. Now, I will say, rest versus rust could be a real debate here for Kansas City. Patrick Mahomes has not thrown a pass in an NFL game since Christmas, which means by the time he throws a pass this Saturday, it'll be 23 days for this team of, Mahomes, Kelsey, Chris Jones, all the starters who didn't play. 23 days of rest. Could they come out rusty? Could they make mistakes early? Could Houston's defense capitalize? It's all possible. I think that Kansas City's defense will not let Houston do too much to them offensively. I think if Houston wins this game, it's going to have to be a low-scoring contest. I think it's going to have to be a close game. The good thing for Houston is Kansas City really hasn't blown anybody out this year. A lot of their games have been one-score finishes. They're actually one of the worst teams against the spread in terms of betting this year. That's why I love Houston, plus 8.5. I think this is a close game. But ultimately, my prediction, Kansas City wins 23-20. I think it's a close game, but in close games, in these big spots, I'm still going to go with Patrick Mahomes, the Chiefs, the back-to-back Super Bowl champs, over the younger, less offensive weapons in Houston. I think Spags can dial up the blitz, and, as long as McDuffie is on Nico Collins and you're forcing other guys to make plays without Tank Dell, who was the leading receiver in that last game versus Kansas City, I just don't know if I truly believe there's enough of another option to sustain enough offense for Houston. I think Houston's defense steps up, and I think they play a good game. I think there is a bit of rust that the Chiefs need to shake off, but ultimately, with their voodoo magic, they win on a walk-off field goal. Kansas City, 23-20. The Washington Commanders travel to Detroit to take on the Lions. The Lions are 9.5-point favorites in this game. The line opened up at Detroit -5.5, and all the money has come flooding in on Detroit to get them up to -9.5. A 4-point swing in the market based on bets is absolutely insane. And that just goes to show how much money has been bet on the Detroit Lions at this point in time. It is a very, very high. These are two very high-powered offenses. The Lions certainly have the edge in overall talent, but I think Jaden Daniels could be better than Jared Goff. I'm not going to go and say that that is for sure the case at this point in time, but if you had that take, you could be proven right this weekend as well. Cliff Kingsbury versus Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson has kind of been the apple of people's eye in terms of head coaching jobs for the last 2 years. But don't forget, Kingsbury was once the head coach of the Cardinals, came back to be the OC of the Commanders this year, and has been getting some love in that respect of, should this guy be a head coach? I think the offensive battle is great. And the defensive battle is also intriguing because neither one of these teams has been great all around. The Commanders' offense operates using the run game to set up second and third and manageable. The Lions have the number 3 run defense in football. The problem there is, though, the Lions aren't a great pass defense. Can Jaden Daniels pick them apart? Whereas on the other side of things, the Commanders' defense is 30th against the run. And the Lions could dominate the line of scrimmage, can dominate the ground with Gibbs and Montgomery. The Lions' defense also forces turnovers, which the Commanders' defense doesn't do a ton of. So if the Commanders are to win this game, Jaden Daniels needs to be uber efficient, and this offense needs to be uber efficient. Well, what did they do last week? They had their most efficient game on the season as an offense, scoring unlimited possessions. Jaden continuing to progress, continuing to show you why he's so special, controlling the game, controlling the clock. I'm not going to predict that to happen. Give me Detroit to win 28-20. I don't think it's super high scoring because I think drives are sustained and the clock is chewed. But for everybody that's willing to just completely count out Jaden Daniels in this Commanders team, I think this could be the upset of the weekend. This is one of those games where, I think a lot of people are very easily saying Detroit, and I'm going to pick Detroit because of the firepower, but I think it's a lot closer of a matchup than people are willing to give it credit for. We move to the other NFC game starting on Sunday at 3 o'clock. The Rams will travel to the Philadelphia to take on the Eagles. The Eagles are currently minus 6.5-point favorites. This is a matchup that we also saw earlier this year. These two teams played in week 12 and the Eagles won 37-20, and there was a last-second touchdown by the Rams in that game. The Eagles were up and dominating very much most of this game. Statistically, when you compare the stats, there's no argument here. The Eagles have been the consistently better team all season long. And I do think that when you take a look at this game, it could be a real debate of the old adage. What's more important, a better full 53-man roster or having the head coach and quarterback edge? Because when you compare these two teams, honestly, that's the only spots where I give the edge to the Rams. I'll take McVay over Sirianni. And at this current moment, I'll take Stafford over Jalen Hurts. But running back, you go Saquon. Wide receiving core, you go Eagles. Tight end room, Eagles. Offensive line, Eagles. Defensive line, I think it's a lot closer than people give it credit for, but only one of these two teams has an all-pro. Jalen Carter, Eagles. Linebacking unit, Eagles. Secondary, Eagles. So we are really testing here a debate of, come playoff football, what matters more? Being a consistently great team all regular season, having the best top to bottom roster, or having the right guy at head coach, the right guy at quarterback, and just enough. Last week, we kind of tested that out with Rams Vikings, but there were some real questions about Sam Darnold performing under the lights, and it seems to have gotten to him. Jalen Hurts, on the other hand, has proven in the big games he could play well. He's taken his team to a Super Bowl, and in that Super Bowl went toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes, stride for stride. Can the Rams stop Saquon Barkley? Can the Rams stop the Eagles' offensive weapons compared to Week 12? Because in Week 12, Saquon Barkley had 255 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns, and A.J. Brown had 109 receiving yards and 1 touchdown. The Eagles' top 2 weapons, there's no denying it, when these two teams faced off in Week 12, absolutely torched the Rams. Can the Rams stop that talent that the Eagles have this time around? And if so, what is the plan? The plan was very simple versus Sam Darnold. They followed Detroit's scheme. Let's blitz the heck out of this guy, make him feel pressured, force him into tough situations. He'll hold on to the ball too long and take sacks or throw an interception. Can you orchestrate that plan against Jalen Hurts? Based on this season, the answer is no. Jalen Hurts last year, they were crushed at the end of the season because teams did what the Rams and Lions did to Sam Darnold. Blitz, 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 make him feel uncomfortable, force him to make decisions. Can he make them consistently correct? The answer last year for the Eagles and Jalen Hurts was no. This year, when blitzed this season, Jalen Hurts has a 68.4% completion percentage, a 117.1 passer rating, and an 8-0 touchdown to interception ratio. Jalen Hurts has been phenomenal versus the blitz this year. Do you have the defense to cover the Eagles' weapons? I would say no at this point in time. As well, there's going to be snowy weather projected in Philly, cold temperatures, everything going on in LA. This team's going across the country. The Eagles played a not so great, it wasn't an A-level game from the Eagles last week, and they beat the Packers by double digits. The Rams just played a perfect game. Can they repeat that performance? You can call it bias if you want, but I think there's a lot pointing to an Eagles victory here. And if the Rams were to win, it would be a tremendous feat from McVay and Stafford. And flowers would be given to them. My hat would be tipped to them. No doubt about it. But I'm predicting the Eagles win 28-17. I think we see a double-digit victory. I like the Eagles to win by more than a touchdown. I think what the Eagles do well is going to really neutralize some of the perceived strengths of the Rams. The defensive line of the Rams that has really come around in the second half of the year. The Eagles are an offensive line that could have 4 different Pro Bowlers on it. The Eagles' run game is not something they'll shy away from the way that the Vikings did. They will continue to commit and continue to wear you down. As well, the Eagles' defense is a coverage-based defense. The Vikings tried to blitz Matt Stafford, and with Puka and Cooper Kupp and how quick some of those guys get on their routes and get open against a blitz, it was easy pickings for Stafford. The Eagles run an opposite kind of defense. Not a lot of blitzes. They will get coverage-based sacks. This is a team that gave the Rams not just a loss, but fits, trouble in Week 12. And I know Week 12 was a while ago, but it wasn't that long ago. Give me Philly 28-17. And lastly, what will be potentially viewed as the game of the playoffs. The Baltimore Ravens are 1.5-point favorites in Buffalo to take on the Bills. Now, these two teams also had a matchup this year. 3 of the 4 matchups that are happening this weekend have played earlier this year. Kansas City and Houston in Week 16. I think it's safe to put a decent amount of stock in that. The Eagles and the Rams in Week 12. 50-50, but I think there's certainly lessons to be taken away. The Bills and the Ravens played in Week 4, and the Ravens won 35-10. This is very much an opinionated question that I'm laying out to you guys. How much stock do you put in a game that happened in Week 4? How much stock do you put in a game that happened at the end of September as we are set to play mid-January divisional round playoff games? How much? That is ultimately a question that's up for debate. Now, I think anytime that you see two teams play in a season, there are certain things that you need to take from it, at least and have your eye on. Have there been adjustments? Are there changes made as we go into this week of action? Now, when we look at the stats of these two teams, offensively, the Ravens have been slightly better. Buffalo averages more points per game. The Ravens average more yards per game. Are touchdowns an unpredictable stat? Or when you see an offense be as efficient as Buffalo's all year, do you believe you can rely on that at a high level? That's the question. But either way, two great offenses, two MVP candidates. Both can be diverse as well. You got Allen, he could run. Cook, he can run. Allen, he could pick apart a zone defense with all his weapons. Baltimore, Lamar, Derrick Henry, you know what they can be in a rushing game. But Lamar Jackson has been the best version of a passer that I've seen from Lamar Jackson, and it almost feels like saying it that way is still discrediting Lamar. He's been an elite passer this year, and you could argue the best. These are two great players and great offenses going at it. Zay Flowers, who is the wide receiver one for the Baltimore Ravens, is doubtful for this game. Based on the reports that I'm seeing, that's how I would tag him. Doubtful. What did he do in Week 4 when the Ravens blew them out? 1 catch, 10 yards. So we've seen before, at least, that the Ravens, we saw last week the Ravens look dominant offensively without Zay Flowers. We've seen the Ravens dominate the Bills without a huge impact from Zay Flowers. So it's not like Zay Flowers is super needed. He obviously helps, and when you're going into a battle like this, you want all of your weapons. But I don't look at Zay Flowers and how much the Ravens need him the way that I would look at an Eagles offense with A.J. Brown. The way that I would look at a Texans offense with Nico Collins, a Rams offense with Puka Nacua. I look at it more as like if Amari Cooper was out for the Bills. Next man up mentality. And that is where the Ravens were last week, and that's where they're going to need to be this week. Defensively, the two stack up, but the two are very different. The Bills are a very balanced defense. They're somewhere around the middle of the pack for pretty much each statistical category on defense. Well, Baltimore, on the other hand, very strong against the run. In fact, the best in the NFL, but 30th against the pass. Now, that's on a full season. We know the Ravens, as a whole, got better as a defense in the second half of the year, which is obviously post-playing Buffalo. But we saw the first glimpses of it versus Buffalo. They have players, Humphrey, Hamilton, Matabuke, Roquan Smith. We know this, Van Noy. They can play elite level, but their pass defense throughout the season was their weak point. They are playing an elite quarterback in Josh Allen with a diverse set of weapons. Will he be able to pick them apart. The way he picked apart that Broncos defense. Because that Broncos defense had been elite all year. And Josh Allen showed you what makes him so special. He picked them apart. Some other numbers here. The Buffalo Bills have the best turnover differential in football this year at plus 24. And they have almost double the forced turnovers that the Baltimore Ravens do. I believe it's 32-17. So what does this mean? The Bills are more likely to buy Josh Allen extra possessions. And in football, in playoff football, turnovers can really dictate games because these are two elite teams going up against each other. Make no mistake, both of these teams can win the Super Bowl. I don't think you could say that for every matchup. I don't know if I believe that Houston can go win a Super Bowl this year. I don't know if I believe Washington could go win a Super Bowl this year. I don't know if I believe the Rams could go win a Super Bowl this year. I believe both of these teams could win the Super Bowl this year, which is why it's the Sunday night game, why it's so high level. We all know this. But in a game that features that much talent, you have to really take care of the ball and make the most out of every time you have it. Mistakes will be magnified in this spot. Buffalo can force turnovers. However, the Ravens are second in the NFL with 54 sacks. The Bills are in the middle of the pack at 39. So what Baltimore can do is maybe not take the ball away, but completely disrupt a drive by getting home on the quarterback. How good will Buffalo's O-line hold up? These are the questions. And, obviously, I don't think anybody will be shocked no matter who wins this game. If I told you the Ravens won, I don't think you'd be shocked. If I told you the Bills won, I don't think you'd be shocked. If I told you the Commanders won, you'd be shocked. Texans, shocked. Rams, some surprise there. But whoever wins this game, nobody's going to be surprised. And this will reflect in my score prediction here. I have the Baltimore Ravens going into Buffalo and winning 35-34. To me, Derrick Henry is the X factor. The last time that these two played, Derrick Henry ran for 200 yards. And it was week 4, but Derrick Henry is a fucking animal. The game is going to be it's going to be really cold. Tackling him gets harder the worse the weather gets. And Buffalo already had a hard time bringing Derrick Henry down last time. The safeties for Buffalo in that second level are not the most secure tacklers. Derrick Henry can easily break a play. And what we saw Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry do to Pittsburgh with the read options has the potential to happen in this game. Ultimately, I think Baltimore, even without Zay Flowers, is more deadly offensively. Because on one side, you have Lamar and Henry. On the other side, it's called Allen and Cook. Give me Lamar and Henry. I lean Lamar over Josh Allen in debates right now. And I think that that is reflected in this score, in who I have winning. Either way, I think we leave this game saying whoever wins, that's who's ahead in rankings, in quarterback rankings. Maybe the game plays out differently and we leave differently, but going into it, that's how I feel. So give me Baltimore 35-34. I got all the favorites winning. Probably a mistake. Kansas City, Detroit, Philly, Baltimore. Those are my predictions. Drop yours, as always, in the comment section down below. You love the NFL, hit that subscribe button. I will catch you guys next time. Peace.